Hello, hello, hello. Hey, Maddie, you made it. Good stuff. I'm just looking at some things online. I don't know what is causing all of these notifications to make noise, and I find it very annoying. Sorry. So I'm just looking at a few things online, to kind of see what we want to bring up, what we want to talk about, but I think I'm just going to let it happen. And then we can talk more about literary devices, characters, themes, motifs, all of that fun stuff we can talk about later. Let's accept all cookies here. I don't mind that. Do we like this view or this view? I think I like this view. Oh, let's look at some quotes. How was my week? How was everyone? Hi. My week was pretty good. Chill, you know. Nothing to really write home about. Tells me she choose between being a zombie in front of her class and alive, and unfortunately she has to be responsible and choose sleep. Well, that's always important, to choose sleep. How has my week been? My week has been very good. Like I said, pretty chill. Okay, it seems like today's going to be a smaller day, not as big group of people. Also, today's live is going to be a little shorter, like 40 minutes or so. So, yeah, let's talk about that. Mila, thank you. I think it's great. I listened to the first 20 pages or so reading, listening to Toni Morrison, and then I read the rest. I actually am one chapter behind. Oh, cool. From Alberto. What's up? If you got to work with one person from... Okay. I'm actually one chapter behind, so I didn't make it all the way to... It's funny, because this is actually like the most important chapter for us to talk about. I didn't make it all the way to rainwater, held on to pine needles. I got to a fully dressed woman walked out of the water, which I am so sorry, because I'm realizing right now that's a huge point in the book. It's a changing point that I think we can tell the rest of the book, especially what was happening at their home, is leading up to. Just remind everyone, this is a discussion purely about this book, Beloved, by Toni Morrison. Some of you might have the same cover as me, cover from the film. I really do think we should see this film. We should all watch it, because it's really great. All right, a few more people coming in. Great. So let's start the way we normally start our books. Let's jump back into it. What are your one-word thoughts? What do you guys think? Can everyone hear me? Also, if everyone can hear me, that would be great. Just want to confirm that. Maddie, I'm going to pin that. Thank you. Look at these pinning skills. Boom. So, yes, everyone can hear me. Great. So what are your one-word thoughts so far? I'm not going to lie. I had a point where I had to put the book down because it was intense. I read something and I was like, right? I pinned that so fast. It was really impressive. One word it's difficult. Yes, I will use heavy and beautiful. Pinning skills unmatched. Great. So you can give me a few words. If you want to give me like one sentence. Heavy is big. Yeah, heavy. That was the word that I remember bringing up when I read it the first time, and it still lingers in that wheelhouse. Dehumanizing, disfiguring, thoughts and emotions. Chaotic. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Hello, I'm a bit late. All good, Cal Caesar. We just started. We're giving our single sentences, one word if you can. Difficult, intense, fascinating, confusing. Okay, cool. We'll talk about that a little bit if you want to go in. One thing I noticed about this book that I think, if you're having trouble reading it, I really recommend listening to the audiobook, because when it's read in Toni Morrison's voice, some of the some of the specificities of language from those people of that time. Context is given a bit more than you reading it yourself. Metaphorical, descriptive, those are very good words for her. There's a magical realism to this book that I think is really interesting, that some of the confusing part might be where you're getting that. Heartbreaking. It's like jumping in and trying to find out what's going on. That's exactly what this book is. We're brought quickly into Sethi's world with her daughter Denver. The audio really helped me. Yeah, I find that it really does, especially for those of you that English might not be your first language. The audio book will help with that context that would allow you to understand a bit more. This book does jump around, and I think that's one of the things that's a big deal. It does jump from the past to present. Re-memory is a word we saw, and currently what's happening. Toni Morrison style, so neat that you can feel everything. I completely agree. I had trouble understanding it first, then listened to the last 1.5 chapters. I'm saying for this book specifically, especially as we enter into it, listening to it will really help. Will really help a lot. I find also reading this book out loud will help a lot. Because there are some times where it's just so beautiful. I just find that her writing, it's a writing that, like, you know how sometimes in movies they have things, they'll have those devices where when someone's speaking, an image comes and you become part of the story. That's what I feel like from the first sentence. Literally, you're dragged into this world. 124 was spiteful, full of a baby's venom. The women in the house knew it, and so did the children. For years, each put up with the spite in its own way, but by 1873, Setha and her daughter Denver were its only victims. Just like, I'm in. I'm tapped in. What's going on? Gut-wrenching. That's a great word. Tony's voice in the audio really brought the characters to life for me. I could almost visually see them while reading. That's my point. Yes. And I completely agree with that, Maddie. It's a book where we need to read slowly and understand everything. Yeah, this isn't a book, especially if this is your first Toni Morrison book, this is not a book to try to do all of the reading in a day, like I have. But we read a few of her before, and I've read this book before, so for me, clicking into her style wasn't as difficult, or it didn't take as much. But for some, it's... What you'll realize is the slower you chew this book, the more you'll taste. If it was written in a straightforward language, I think it would be too traumatic in places. But I think it would also take away from the other elements. You know, but I agree with you. It's so visceral. This scene... You definitely can't rush this book. You have to take your time. There was one scene specifically that I'm going to try to find it. And I'm not going to read too much of it because it's a lot. When Setha was telling Paul D about her experience before she fled Sweet Home. Because remember, should we talk about the timeline really quickly? Let's talk about it. So we come into 124, the house that Setha lives with her daughter, Denver, where her mother-in-law, Baby Suggs, used to live. Baby Suggs was the mother of Hallie, who then became Setha's husband. Setha tried to leave Sweet Home with her 3 kids that were alive, her 2 boys, and Denver. Oh, I'm going to read this really quickly. The name remains. Thank you. My edition has a foreword where Toni Morrison herself says the jumping back and forth in time and confusion is intentional. So the reader is snatched from one place to another, just as the characters were. And that's brilliant. That's exactly remember, when we read Toni Morrison, everything she does is on purpose and is in service of this story that she's bringing us into. She's not just telling us. So... anything you feel is on purpose. Anything that you think, wow, that made me jarred at the quickness with which she changed. You know, Like when, okay, so let's just go back to this. So Denver, and they all live at 124. Well, you'll see her jump back in time to when she lived at Sweet Home, or when she fled Sweet Home and was found by the girl Amy. But there's also Paul D, who was a Sweet Home man. And when he first enters 124, he recognizes this other presence. This presence that's physically there. And this is where we start to get into like the magical realism of this book, and where the spirituality, the spiritual aspect starts to play a role. But I did not have a foreword, so I'm a little disappointed. There would be no lobby into this house, and there would be no introduction into it or into the novel. I wanted the reader to be kidnapped, thrown ruthlessly into an alien environment as the first step into a shared experience with the book's population, just as the characters were snatched from one place to another, from any place to any other, without preparation or defense. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Paula. That's incredible. It's definitely a book that if you want to feel many things, then this book is for you. Yes. So she tells all of them about this life, and there we go. Yeah, so let's keep talking. I know it feels like it jumps back and forth. Paula sends to us on Discord. Okay, good. Oh, that's lovely. What is it? No, mine just starts with one. Mine doesn't have a forward, which is disappointing. Oh, good, Lexi. Welcome. We're just talking about it, how the book jumps back and forth through time, and that's a device that Toni Morrison is actively using with her audience to kind of, I think, place them in this semi-unrooted state, like all of her characters are kind of in. The first notions that we've gotten of them wanting to feel permanent are when Paul D shows up and he's like, we can build a life. Yeah, please do that, Maddie. That would be great. And I'll try to see if it'll pop up on my Twitter. Maybe I can read it real quick. Instagram is crashing? Really? That's not fun. But can everyone still hear me and talk? Is the live still going well? The live is not going well. What gives? This is very disappointing. Okay, some are good, some aren't. Because mine seems to be perfectly fine and all of my internet seems to be working. Disappointing, that is. Disappointing. Okay. Anyway, I've noticed that there's so many videos of Toni Morrison talking about this book, but I haven't enough time this period to see it, but I'll love to watch them. Yes, Thina, please do, and if you find one that you think is particularly interesting or just like really cool for the book club to have, if you wouldn't mind just sharing it, and I'll retweet. And that's what I think we should do with all of these, for this book specifically. If anyone, I know all of you guys are sharing on the Discord probably, but anything you find that you want to just get out to a bigger audience, tweet to me and I'll make sure we retweet it. God, Instagram. Glitches every so often. Okay, cool. So we'll just stay on it. But I remember my first time reading this book, it took some time to kind of understand what was happening. You know, it took a second to be like, oh, okay, we're going back and forth. We are 75 people in the Discord. Hell yeah. Going back and forth, and it's bringing us to these very specific times for these people. Let me see something. want to read one part of the book, because this is something that I do believe and I think is really cool that they talked about. How nothing ever dies, even memory, and how sometimes memory can leave an impact on a place. I think one of the most often times when we feel that is when we go to like a graveyard or some place that has a very difficult past. When you go there, it's a palpable feeling. You can feel it. I've heard the same thing described of concentration camps. When you go and visit, you can palpably feel the suffering and the evil that kind of took place, and the sadness. And I agree with that. So there's one part that I do want to read. It just, I had it lined out. I don't know why. It's Seth talking to Denver. And she goes, I was talking about time. It's just so hard for me to believe in it. Some things go, pass on. Some things just stay. I used to think it was my rememory. Some things you forget, other things you never do. But it's not. Places are still there. If a house burns down, it's gone. But the place, the picture of it, stays. And not just in my rememory, but out there in the world. What I remember is a picture floating around out there outside my head. I mean, even if I don't think it, even if I die, the picture of what I did or knew or saw is still out there, right in the place where it happened. Can other people see it? Asked Denver. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Someday you'll be walking down the road and you hear something or see something going on so clear, and you think it's you thinking it up, a thought picture, but no. It's when you bump into a rememory that belongs to somebody else. I thought that was super cool, because it was like, yes, I agree with that. And I think that's a specific thing in the book that we're seeing. This house has a rememory that is palpable by Paul D when he walks in for the first time. The town knows that house because of something, and we don't really know what it was. Just catching up. Memories can be far emotional, metaphysically, and physically. Exactly. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure we read this book. This exact talk here. This is what I'm talking about. The memory of that, of this time in American history. The physical, metaphysical memory that was planted into these places in the South, all over the United States, is still palpable and present. And the idea that we were going to allow ourselves to not be taught about it, that there was a whole school district that was like, no, we're going to not ever talk about it, when those memories are still there, palpable. You can feel them, you can see them, you can visit plantations. Like, that was bothering me. And I'm glad we're reading that, because I know a lot of countries have histories where terrible things happened, and you can visit places that are memories of those terrible things. And I feel like we should, they are there for a reason, and we have to talk about them and remember them and learn about them and feel them. Behind the side said, yes, it's heavy, and that she was thinking about that instead of praying. Powerful. Thoughts about that time and places are so important. It's full of memory, chemistry, emotions. I'm so glad that we're rereading it together. I agree. And we're learning about other things in this book too. Quickly, we can talk about the beautiful moment of intimacy between Sethe and Paul D when she showed him the tree on her back and like unburdened herself of that memory, and Paul D took on that burden, that knowledge that she may have never shared with someone else. I thought that was beautiful. It's so weird to me that they had an extra day for the carnival, since I've never seen such things. Yeah, that was very present in American history, especially during that time. And then we're also going to talk really quickly about how when she was at Sweet Home, that was pre-World War One. That was pre the Civil War. And then we hear Mrs. Garner talking about the Civil War. Interesting that they're the Garners when the story is loosely based on a woman named Garner. I have it in my notes. Margaret Garner. The story of Sethe is loosely based on a woman named Margaret Garner. So it's interesting that the owners of the plantation and property that they were on, Sweet Home, were the Garners. I think that's cool. But such a good book. So what else? What else is everyone thinking? Any thoughts? Any other ideas you want to bring up in this? I know this feels just like more of a discussion. I want us to get it out there, and then later on, when we have a little more to talk about, we can talk about the devices and themes, symbols, and whatnot. I know one thing to keep an eye out for is the color red. Anytime it's brought up, it's intentional. It's meant to mean emotion. It's so that I know that's one thing that we have to just pique our interest. I mean, even color, when it's mentioned, the 2 orange squares left in the house, it was barren, symbolized to me her and Denver, the people left in the house, and this house kind of dead with no life until Paul D comes in. And the scene after they talk about those 2 colored orange squares on that quilt, they end up going to this carnival with Paul D. So color will be a big thing in this book. With the last chapter, I remember the last chapter. We can talk a little bit about it if you want. I won't be fully caught up, but yeah, feel free. The metaphor of people being used as checkers really stood out to me. Right? Does anyone have that quote written down or something, or because I would love to read that one out loud. I can't get enough letters to talk about it, honestly, because my mind's going in an adoration loop. Yeah. Trees. Yes. Thank you. I like how the supernatural is something so common to all of them. Something so understood that there's this other part, not just so physical, this metaphysical. Yeah, in a lot of other cultures, we see that. This understanding that there's something greater. And I do appreciate that, too. Trees are a recurring theme. Yeah. Let's go back to that intimacy really quickly. The intimacy between Paul D and Sethe, the connection that they had that her daughter Denver understood she was outside of. I thought that was beautiful too. I thought that was a really cool thing that she saw her mom kind of become this like childlike version of herself in the presence of this other person who carries a part of her past, who also can connect with her in a way, who she doesn't feel the need to protect or hold on to, someone that she can share with and be naked in front of, physically, emotionally. And then I thought it was amazing how they have this beautiful, intimate moment, and then they're both repulsed by each other and by themselves, almost as if like something that sweet and that nice was too good for them to. They flew too close to the sun. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Because that's one of the contentious parts of this book was the sexuality of it. That was what they were kind of talking about when they wanted to ban it, was this sexual nature in the book. But what we're recognizing is that this sex was a metaphor for this connection, for this understanding. It was this intimacy, this closeness that they had, this ability to be naked in front of each other, even though they never got fully naked, which is also a metaphor, you know? There's a tree that have a name, literally. It's like a character in some points. Yep. And how about Denver feels so lonely that she even misses the resentful ghost? Paul D, me and you, we got more yesterday than anybody. We need some kind of tomorrow. Wow. Some lovely people, I have to go. Enjoy your reading. Oh, thanks, Ems. Have a good one. I think the baby ghost is being reborn as it was freed from the house because Sethe let it go by loving Paul D. That is really cool. So you think that the woman coming out of the water is the baby? Is that baby ghost being reborn? Is that what you're saying? And that's the thing, like reading this intimacy, like reading this beautiful moment where he kisses every branch of that tree on her back. And he carries the weight of the pain that she felt for her and feels to this day. It released it. You know, it seems to me, that's cool. We'll talk a little more of that as we read. Just keep thinking about who this ghost can be and why. I'll say that's what I thought, and that's what I think. But I read something that I was like, oh, I never thought about it that way. So we'll think about it. We'll think about it. But I think there's more evidence for one side than the other. But let's keep talking then. Pretty cool, right? Oh gosh, not more ghosts, guys, please. Back, we're talking about now, oh gosh, does anyone want to fill Lexi in? No, wow, it's funny that I'm looking at my back, don't I? When you guys start talking about ghosts and weird stuff starts happening in this apartment. Rebirth of the curse? Maybe. It's just so interesting because you see in the chapters preceding this, the imagery of her urinating as though her waters are breaking supports the idea that the woman is the baby reborn. I agree. That's very well put. This time I'm thinking about ghosts, it's more like a spirit. Yeah, Denver watching all her family leaving or dying, then having to deal with the feeling that she's losing her mother to Paul D and latching on to Beloved to have someone of her own. Heartbreaking. I felt Denver's loneliness. But in a way, it's like she said, she was protected from all of this, because this loneliness, though, is what protects her from this pain. I think, like, Sethi carries around so much pain that she tried to protect Denver from, and Denver was kind of kept from, like when she was in jail, and the rats bit everything but her. The memories that her and Paul D share make them closer because they're closer through the pain that they share because of them. A pain that she doesn't know. The loss of Hallie, a similar thing. That's what I'm thinking. I think she's mistaking it. Here we go. I found the Checkers quotes. It made sense for a lot of reasons, because in all of Baby's life, as well as Sethi's own, men and women were moved around like checkers. What she called the nastiness of life was the shock she received upon learning that nobody stopped playing checkers just because the pieces included her children. Hallie, she was able to keep the longest. There was a quote I read to my daughter when Sethi says that to a mother, a child will always be a child. Yes. That's when she was talking to here we go. And this is after Denver kind of shows like that first like defiance towards Paul D, that, or not the first, but when she asks how long he's hanging around, as if it's just going to be an in and out thing, and he kind of wonders, is this a thing that happens? You know, and this, I'm going to read a bit of it, but this scene broke my heart as well. Risky, thought Paul D., very risky. For a used-to-be slave woman to love anything that much was dangerous, especially if it was her children she had settled on to love. The best thing, he knew, was to love just a little bit. Everything just a little bit. So when they broke its back, or shoved it in a croaker sack, well, maybe you'd have a little love left over for the next one. Why? He asked her. Why you think you have to take up for her, apologize for her? She's grown. I don't care what she is. Grown don't mean nothing to a mother. A child is a child. They get bigger, older, but grown? What's that supposed to mean? In my heart, it don't mean a thing. I feel like every mother or parent was like, yep, that's so true. They encouraged you to put some weight in their hands, and as soon as, oh my gosh, the name remains. You're bringing up the what Baby Suggs said to, and listen to this, the tragedy, the trauma of this slavery, the destruction of community, the constant pain, death, loss, shuffle, keeps these people from opening, from settling, from loving fully because of it. And that's why this book is so important, because it brings us into this world that we can never understand. But it brings us so viscerally into this pain, into this loss, into this need to protect themselves from even love, because love becomes too painful. From caring. So the few things that they can have, they hold on to. And it's just, this book is so important. They encouraged you to put some weight in their hands, and as soon as you felt how light and lovely that was, they studied your scars and tribulations. After which they did what they had done, and they continued to do what they wanted, ran their children out of the house. Ran her children out and tore up the house. Just kind of as he did. The relationship with past, present, future is so important too. I can't wait to read more. Yeah, and this is what I think when we go back to like Slaughterhouse 5. Imagine if you could see all of that time as one painting, right? Like the Tralfamadorians did. Seeing all of that time that she says she doesn't understand. All as one painting, that'd be interesting. I read somewhere that Denver never craves a past as she doesn't have one. Everyone else shares the same past at Sweet Home. Ooh, yes. Maybe that's it. A past she was never really allowed to have. They never gave to her because they know that they didn't want her to have it. Wow. Cool. I'm catching up. As a parent, you love your kids unending without boundaries also, no matter what. Yep. Something that is loved is never lost. My light keeps flickering. I'm not going to pay attention to that. I don't know what you're talking about. I just love the way this book is written. I think it's just full, absolutely full. Every word, every image. And I really do think that if you should finish the book sooner, or when you finish the book, when we do, absolutely watch the movie. The movie's very good. Slightly different as is every movie from a book, but pretty damn true and pretty good. I love how respectful the men at Sweet Home were towards Sethe when she was young. Yeah. And I feel like Denver likes the ghost because it's the only past she shares with her mother, as the house is not enchanted by it. Yeah, wow. Bro, Paula, that was awesome. Yes, I absolutely adore this book now. I almost missed getting off the train. Her style of writing is awesome. All right, we have about 5 minutes left. Like I said, today's going to be a shorter live. Let's talk quotes real quick. Any other quotes that we just loved? Ideas we were really excited about. Let's put them out there. I'm going to try to find one too. Whew. Now in Shane's Bite. I love that everything is connected to Sweet Home. Give me the home sensation that I love during the narration. Live your part of the book in the memories. Yeah. But I also think it's interesting how, like, when they talk about Sweet Home, there's that shudder, that what they remembered, what it did to them, it's forever embedded in who they are. Freeing yourself was one thing. Claiming ownership that freed yourself was another. Past his life its own on the movie poster, the quote, wow, but maybe a man was nothing but a man. Which is what Baby Suggs always said. They encouraged you to put some of your weight in their hands, and as soon as you felt how light and lovely that, anything dead come back to life hurts. Oh, that was beautiful. Anything dead coming back to life hurts. I loved how when they're on the way and on the way back from the fair, their shadows were holding hands. I'm just gonna... If it's still there waiting, that means something, yeah. A man ain't nothing but a man, but a son? Now that's somebody, yeah. I feel like the circle of trees is going to come back and be an important location in the story where Denver feels real pain for the first time. Interesting, Wendy. I'm excited to see if that's what you think. I agree, this is what you meant, but you can feel everything. Absolutely. The shadows were written in a way that I could see it. And that's the thing, she does imagery so well. It's really fascinating to read her and feel as though you're not reading anymore. You're like seeing things. I was talking about time. It's so hard for me to believe in it. Some things go, pass on. Some things just stay. I used to think it was my memory, you know? Some things you can't forget. For Sethe, the holding of those shadow hands signals a possible future happiness. Yeah, it's like you see the shadow of what it's going to become. This idea of maybe family, this idea of home, this idea of together and having each other. Yeah, it's beautiful. Suspended between the nastiness of life and the meanness of the dead. She couldn't get interested in leaving life or living it. Wow, so many quotes. What free could possibly mean to women. Wow. I was confused with what she meant with the white dress knit down next to her mother that Denver saw. Oh, that was something spiritual. I saw this white dress, and that's why she's like, you probably thought the bed sheets. She's like, no, it had buttons. She's like, oh, well, that's not the bed sheets. Bed sheet doesn't have buttons. And then she describes the dress, and she's like, well, yeah, we'll see. And she's like, I think the spirit has plans. And that gets her to saying, we'll find out. You know, that part is where it goes into this very spiritual aspect of the book. Was it hard? I hope she didn't die hard. Sethe shook her head. Soft as cream. Being alive was the hard part. I completely agree. Oh my God. That quote was great. Soft as cream. Oh! And the way that Paul D was like, you told me she died hard. You told me she died soft as cream. What is this presence? And she's like, oh, that's not evil. It's just sad. And then he could feel the sadness and almost see the weeping spot. You know, I thought that was just like, there's an acceptance of spirituality we have to read this book. But it's also because that's such an active part of that. culture and of that time, and the spiritual aspect. Oof. All right. Any final thoughts, final words, final things? Ever seen a little kid get really sad and frustrated? Yeah, of course. Am I getting frozen again, or is no one talking? I'm so glad I'm reading this book. It's so beautiful, and I'm so grateful. I agree. And as we continue reading, we're going to see some more of the single slow blink of her eyes, the bottom lip sliding slowly up to cover the top, and then a nostril sigh, like the sniff of a candle flame. Yes, I can't wait to delve deeper. Let me look at that right meow. So we're going to have a couple more. You know what? I think it's going to be kind of perfect. Because we're going to have some more time in between reading. We're not going to meet next week. Next week is Thanksgiving week for those in America. Maybe in other parts of the world. I know Canada does it a month before. So, not for next week, but for the week after, which I think will be the first weekend in December, we are going to read up to page 107, which is about half, a little less than halfway through the book. Should we do more? Yeah, we'll go to 115. So we will read up to the part that starts, she moved him. For me, that's 114. The first line is, she moved him, not the way she had beat off the baby's ghost, all bang and shriek. You know, she moved him. That's 114 for me. I can try to find out the chapter number, but you know what? I'll take a picture when we finish and I'll post it. Page 114 for me is where it is. She moved him. So that's what we'll read to. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in our first book back for Season 5. An incredible book and incredibly important right now. I don't know if you saw, but they withdrew that attempt to ban this book from school. So I think that's a really positive thing. They no longer are doing that in Virginia. Although the Republican governor won, they withdrew that idea. So that's good for us. She moved him. So we'll do that in 2 weeks. I'll keep everyone posted online. Again, if anyone finds a video, an interview, an article that we think is cool, also with sharing it in the Discord, share it on the Twitter so that we can... I'm not following Rosende's community on Instagram. Oh my gosh, I didn't know there was. I'll check it out. No, but thank you. It's 134 in Tifkut's book. Good. So 134, for me it was 114, somewhere in there, but it starts with she moved him. We'll keep it there. Thank you for reading. Again, share everything on the Discord, and then the things that you want to share with me, share on Twitter, and I can retweet so that it goes to, wider audience. Now, continue to be curious, continue to question things, continue to grow, continue to learn, continue to change, and continue to be positive forces of change in your community. Thank you for reading along, and I will see you guys in a couple weeks to continue. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.